All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating and honestly kind of terrifying intersection. We're looking at how our rational judgment can be completely bypassed by both external threats and our own internal exhaustion. Because, as it turns out, protecting yourself from psychological predators, well, that has just as much to do with neuroscience as it does with psychology. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're following this really fascinating outside in arc. We'll start with the art of manipulation, then look at the love bombing trap, move inward to our brain's internal defenses, check out the cost of sleep loss, and finally, finish up with rebuilding your mental resilience. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the art of manipulation. Now, you probably know this piece of pop culture inside and out. Remember that heartbreaking scene in The Lion King? Scar feeds these incredibly insidious phrases to Simba. What have you done? What will your mother think? He completely bypasses the young lion's rational judgment using pure, unadulterated guilt. Notice, he didn't use facts. He weaponized feelings. And that is the absolute core of it. Everyday emotional manipulators are trying to control you indirectly. They bypass your logic by putting a target right on your emotional vulnerabilities. So, instead of a direct confrontation, they twist the environment so heavily that you actually end up doing what they want, thinking it's your own choice, or worse, your own fault. They are literally treating you not as an autonomous human being, but as a tool to get what they want. Which brings us to Section 2, the love bombing trap. Okay, so these everyday tactics, they can quickly escalate into something much more dangerous. Psychology professor Margaret Singer noted that the phrase love bombing was actually coined back in the 1970s by the Unification Church. Fast forward to today, and it's a widely recognized, highly deceptive ploy. Cult members, romance scammers, you name it, they flood their victims with flattery, affection, and instant companionship. By totally overwhelming your senses with positivity, they manufacture this incredibly fast but entirely false sense of trust. To map this out, psychiatrist Dale Archer uses the IDD timeline of abuse. It's basically a trap in 3x. Phase 1, that happens in mere days. Intense idealization. You are just showered with affection and heavily pressured for a rapid commitment. But then, as weeks pass, boom, we hit Phase 2. Devaluation. The absolute second you show any independence, they punish you. Passive-aggressive behavior, shouting, maybe the silent treatment. Finally, over months, you reach Phase 3, the discard phase. You're tossed aside, or the whole vicious cycle just repeats itself. So why do smart people fall for this? Let's move on to Section 3, our brain's internal defenses. We rely heavily on our brain's executive functions to act as our shield against these psychological traps. But if we compare a rested mind against an exhausted one, honestly, the contrast is alarming. A fully rested brain has strong executive function, solid working memory, and sharp rational judgment. An exhausted brain, though, it suffers from something called wake state instability. Think of it like a computer constantly trying to force a reboot while you're desperately trying to type out a document. Your sleep-initiating mechanisms forcefully interrupt your waking consciousness, leading to massive cognitive performance variability. You literally can't trust your own mental processing. And that internal vulnerability leads directly into Section 4, the cost of sleep loss. This severe internal vulnerability comes with a staggering neurocognitive cost, one that manipulators are absolutely banking on. Sleep deprivation severely degrades specific neurocognitive domains, making you the perfect target. Your brain starts experiencing involuntary microsleeps. Your short-term and working memory, they just plummet. You lose cognitive speed, you lose accuracy, but honestly, the worst part, you suffer major deficits in divergent thinking and risk assessment, which leads to response perseveration. Basically, that means you stubbornly keep trying the same ineffective solutions over and over again. You completely lose the mental flexibility needed to spot a trap. It's like aggressively pushing on a pull door and standing there wondering why it won't open. And the visual proof of this is incredibly stark. Just take a look at these fMRI scans. In the top row, we've got a healthy brain, right? It's lighting up dynamically during a verbal learning task. Now, check out the bottom row. This is after 35 hours without sleep. You can clearly see a severely altered spatial distribution in the prefrontal cortex. The brain is quite literally malfunctioning on a metabolic level. What's happening there, that dimming activity, is the result of a global drop in brain energy. Sleep loss functionally starves your prefrontal cortex, and that's exactly the armor you need to resist manipulation and hold memories online. With that primary system compromised, your exhausted brain is forced to rely on backup systems just to stay awake. It leaves your executive attention completely exposed. Now, scientists discovered something super surprising when they mapped out these deficits. If you look at cognitive lapses compared to just simple sleep debt on the left, the data is pretty scattered. But check out the right side. When you map those exact same errors against how many straight hours a person has been awake, the line is clean, it's predictable, it's incredibly linear. Our cognitive deficits map directly to our cumulative excess wakefulness. Which brings us to a very specific, absolutely critical number, 15.84. Researchers mathematically pinpointed 15.84 hours as the maximum period of stable wake time a healthy adult can maintain. Once you push past that absolute limit, profound neurocognitive deficits begin to accumulate, and fast. Your defenses drop. You become incredibly, dangerously vulnerable to deception. So now that we deeply understand how these vulnerabilities are exploited, let's jump into our final section, rebuilding your mental resilience. To defend against external psychological traps, like that love bombing cycle we talked about, Dr. Dale Archer recommends a highly actionable method called SLL. It stands for Stop, Look, and Listen. When you feel overwhelmed by instant affection or rushed into a commitment, you need to deliberately stop, take a step back, look objectively at the situation, listen to your gut, break contact, and seek support before that devastating devaluation phase can even begin. But here is the biological reality. You literally cannot properly execute those defense methods if your brain is starved of energy. To keep that prefrontal cortex fully armed against deception, we have to prevent that catastrophic wake state instability. So to reset that 15.84-hour clock, the science is crystal clear. You need an estimated 8.16 hours of sleep. It is not a luxury, folks. It is your cognitive shield. So as we wrap up this explainer on the incredible vulnerabilities of human cognition, I want to leave you with one final, deeply personal question. Are you getting enough sleep to genuinely protect your own rational mind? Because when the manipulators come knocking, you are definitely going to want that executive function fully online. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this helps you build a much more resilient mind.